Hello, everybody, and Happy New Year. Welcome to the podcast. Man, it's just crossing over. It's like taking one step from 2022 into 2023. I am genuinely excited about this year. I'm genuinely excited to leave 2022 behind. There were some good things that happened. I learned a lot. I grew a lot. I know I watched you grow a lot and do so many awesome things in 2022. You're a spectacular, spectacular woman, Laura. I just want to tell you that. And I'm going to start this year off right by telling you that you're the inspiration of my life. I think somebody wrote a song about that. But anyway, it is a brand new year, and I was stirred thinking about some things that you and I both did in 2022. We actually went through a book by a friend of mine, Caleb Moran. It's called Calendar Hacking. You can get one of these books any place books are sold. No, I'm just kidding. You can get it on Amazon and probably other digital things as well. But the message of that book, Laura, really had an impact on my life. I've gone through several things over the years, different courses on, don't you comment on this, time management. I've gone through, all kind of different things as leadership, being able to just kind of keep things, prioritize, manage the different things that all of us have to deal with in life. And I really got a lot out of this message. And the beginning of last year, I implemented the principles in the book, and it was really revolutionary for me. And I want to kind of discuss just a couple of the principles from that, because I think this will help, obviously, all of us.
Yeah, starting out the new year.
Yeah. But basically, the premise of the book, Caleb tells a story. Spoiler alert. No, not really. But he tells a story about he was busy in ministry and business, and he had gotten news that one of his, basically through several events, one of his children had gotten really, really sick, and they thought that he was going to pass away. And, good news, I'm going to keep you hanging there, but he just had a miraculous turnaround, by the hand of the Lord and some different things that they did. But he told this story. He said that when he heard, basically when his son went into the hospital initially, he said he basically recapped, all these emotions. And he said his main priority was his son. He said this. I thought this was so powerful. He said, I didn't think about whether I had put the money in payroll to pay my staff. I didn't think about if someone turned the air condition off at the organization that he was over. I didn't think about, if my lawn needed to get cut, etc. He said, my only thought then was my son. But here's where the powerful thing was. He began to think about his time with his son up to that point. And he started asking himself questions. Did I spend enough time with him? Did I connect with him? Did I pour into him? And through this process, he actually went through a revolution of sorts, and he put it in the book, and he basically uncovered this. It's not new per se, but just kind of reiterated some powerful things about life. And he said this was the main deal here. He realized that he was spending a lot of time with things that weren't really that important. He was pushing things ahead. His time was dominated with, things in business and organization and things. And he realized that while he was doing all that he neglected the things that were the most important to him.
Yeah.
And when I went through that, it resembled another course that I had gone through a few years back, and they're both just so good. But Laura, I think I just want to take some time today just to go through the steps of what Caleb talks about in the book, uncovering our priorities. Mm-hmm. And obviously, it's like Laura said, it's a new year. It's a good time to do this. But we went through this. You went through the book. I went through the book. Well, let me ask you, what were some of your priorities?
Family.
Yeah.
Yeah, health, finances, Marriage.
Where am I on the list? Where am
Can I ask you what was on your list?
I'll tell you what's on my list. Where am I?
I was going to say, I think that's where everybody's at, though. I mean, like, well, it should be. Your priorities, there should be like your family on that list, you know, your marriage, your children, you know, if you have children or grandchildren, but your health, I mean, that needs to be a priority there. The call that's on your life.
Wow.
You know, I mean, everybody has a call. Just because you're not in full-time ministry doesn't mean you don't have a call on your life.
Yeah.
There's something that you were called to do. But if you get stuck in the busyness of the day, stuck, you know, punching the clock, you know, in and out when you're going to and from work, then a lot of times that call that's on your life will just kind of, it gets covered with dust.
Sure.
And we just kind of forget about those things. And that's why I really loved Caleb's book. I thought it was very simplistic, very doable, very practical.
Yeah.
But really, you said it starts with, like, what are the things that are important to me?
Yeah.
So that's a question to ask yourself, like, what is important to me?
Yeah, and that's kind of the first step in the process, is what he calls priorities. And a priority is that it's what's going to take precedence over other areas of your life. Now, this is actually interesting because I'm a heart person. Like, I'm always thinking, I'm thinking inside. I'm a feeler kind of a person. I want to experience, you know, my life and all that. But I think maybe some people that maybe don't have that personality, they may tend to kind of just organize things, and productivity is not necessarily accomplishment or fulfillment. And I think the thing that kind of was the point for me was we've got to find out what's most important.
I was going to say it won't move you forward in those areas that are important to you. You may get a lot done, you may accomplish a lot of things, but if it's not moving you ahead in those areas that you say are important to you, that you want to prioritize, then it's just a lot of junk that's really become a distraction for you.
Yeah.
You know, there's a scripture in the Bible, it talks about it's the little foxes that spoil the vineyard, and it's true. It's like with life a lot of times, like it's just whatever's coming at us, that's what we're just dealing with, instead of really kind of setting our day, our week, our month, and our year, you know, and setting that course. Now, it doesn't mean that things won't happen and you'll have to maybe deal with something that you were not anticipating on dealing with in that moment. But as long as you have your clear-cut priorities and, you know, your goals set, then you'll be able to get back on track.
I was thinking about, remember that movie with Kirk Cameron on marriage, Fireproof? Mm-hmm. If you ever seen that, it was actually a pretty cool movie. But I just remembered this thing with him. He was kind of looking for a boat, you know, in the movie. It's been a long time since I've seen it, and his marriage was falling apart, and his focus was like this boat, or I think it was a boat, and he was going to pour all this money into this boat, and I don't remember if his wife was in agreement with it or not, but their marriage was kind of going in separate directions. They were kind of not, you know, communicating. They were fighting a lot, and by the end of the movie, he realized, you know, that boat wasn't that important in the bigger picture. I think he actually took the money and, you know, did something for his wife's, one of her relatives or something. I don't remember.
Yeah.
But that process, Laura, basically, he basically displayed how priorities really should work.
Yeah.
Because we can experience that. I know we've both done that in, you know, the context of marriage, you know, being in ministry. Sometimes we get busy, you know, your boundaries get a little blurred and you end up kind of doing more in one area and then you neglect one area and it produces a lot of problems.
You get out of sync, you get out of balance. And, you know, I'm pretty sure I've shared on this podcast before about, you know, the object lesson that, you know, was done in children's church. You've got the big rock, the pebbles, the sand. And if you put the sand and the pebbles in and then you put the big rock, it doesn't fit.
Yeah.
But if you put the big rock in, then you can put all the sand and pebbles in.
That is so good.
And it really is true in our life. It's like if you start trying to jam, something in here when you don't have like the foundation laid and your priorities, and it's just things get it's a mess. And that's when you'll find yourself kind of worn out, frazzled, exhausted, frustrated. That's when usually tension maybe rises in the marriage or, with the children or whatever the case may be.
I was thinking about, like just in these areas in general, you just described like what that looks like when things are out of balance, that frustration, whatever. But, for me, like we have 3 children, obviously 3 teenagers, 2 are graduating high school or finishing, dual enrollment stuff with college. And then our son's in 10th grade. And, I feel sometimes that if not prioritized, for me, then I do get a little bit disconnected from my kids.
Well, I was going to say, let's talk about this because I think this is great.
Yeah.
So you say like your children are a priority to you.
Well, if they're not, they should be, right?
Yeah, they should be if you've got children. But if they're a priority to you, then what steps are you taking to prioritize your children? So, you started something and you would, periodically take each of our children out on just, dates, whether it was a day date, night date, whatever, something that they enjoy doing. It may have been going car shopping. It could have been going Topgolf, taking one of them shopping. Excuse me. But, that was a way that you prioritized our children. And I think sometimes we're really good at saying like, I love God, or I love my children, I love my spouse, but
that's it right there.
But what are we doing? I'm big on like, I'm not interested in lip service. Like, you need to show me, show me that you love me, prioritize me. But even like in marriage, if I wish I would have like married a masseuse. Like, I always said when I was young, like, I want to marry a masseuse and a cook. I got the cook.
I was a masseuse for many years in our marriage.
So I just love like somebody rubbing my shoulders, somebody rubbing my feet, and he knows that. And so because you know that, you really have over the years, you've done such a good job of just kind of like, you show me that you love me by just, you prioritize me by just doing something that I love, that I get pleasure out of. And so it could be as simple as that. We used to, before I started my morning workout sessions, but we used to walk like every evening together.
Or ride
bikes. That was our time to kind of reconnect, talk about the day. But again, we were prioritizing our marriage and one another.
Yeah, and I think it's so good. And I just, like, for maybe you're listening and just to kind of drive it home a little bit, if you feel like maybe the areas that are most important to you are not, like, flowing that well right now, maybe you feel there's a disconnect between your kids or even your grandkids. Maybe you're having some challenges in your health, or maybe your finances are not where they need to be. Maybe, your job or career or calling, some of those things that are obviously important, maybe they're not where they need to be, or, any of those areas. There's just that frustration. This is the beginning. And I think, again, this is just a phenomenal time to do this and go through this process of just sitting down. And it does start with that. What are the things that are most important? I think Laura's right when she said, we all have those core areas, obviously for us, God, family, calling or ministry for us, health, family, finances. Those are, all of us are going to be within those same 5 or 6 areas. It's just the way that it is, right? But the thing is, we've got to write them down.
Write them down.
You've got to identify them.
Identify those things that are important to you, and then begin to look at them and figure out and really ask the Lord, because he can help you. Like, how can I prioritize each of these areas? What can I start doing to move in a healthy direction? How can I find more connection with my children? How can I improve my health? And really that's where the process starts. Identifying the areas, and then what little changes. I think sometimes people try and do too much and it gets too overwhelming, and then you get discouraged because you didn't do everything that you put down, and then you just kind of quit and give up. Yeah. It's like, just start little changes, making little tweaks, because those little changes and those little tweaks, they will add up. If you say like your relationship with God is important to you, and maybe right now you're not spending any time in prayer or any time in reading the Word, don't say I'm going to spend an hour a day in prayer and I'm going to read 3 chapters of the Bible a day. Just start with a couple verses or a chapter a day. Spend 5 minutes in prayer. Start like taking little bites, but just little tweaks to those areas that you say that you prioritize. They'll make a tremendous difference at the end of this year.
It will. And, just in kind of wrapping this up, the thing with priorities, Laura, for me, it's the fuel of my life. And if I'm ever down or, kind of just my focus is not there, or I'm just don't seem to be on top of my game, every single time it's because those areas of priority have gotten pushed to the side. Yeah. And it happens to all of us.
You get
bogged
life.
Down, maybe something in life happens, gets you off track. Maybe you had to, deal with whatever circumstances. And obviously, as we talked this week in our service here at Melody Church, the enemy, our spiritual enemy comes in and will, try to derail us and get us off track.
Yeah.
But man, to have those areas in balance, like what does Jesus say? If you gain the whole world but lose your soul, that really is a scripture on prioritizing.
Yeah.
Because you can go after money. Nothing wrong with money, but if money is your only priority, you're probably going to end up losing your marriage, losing your family, probably losing your health at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And those things that really, how many parents and people go and say, I'm going to make all this money for my family. Mm-hmm. But then in the process of going after money, they actually lose their family.
Yeah.
So what is that? It's a classic case of misplaced priorities. And this is the time of the year to just go do like Laura said, take some time, just a few minutes.
Yeah.
Even during this podcast, when it's over, just take a few minutes, 5-10 minutes, 20 minutes if you have it. Go through that thing and just write down what are those areas that are most important.
Yeah.
And if at the end of that time you have a list of things that are only to do with you and that seem selfish, then guess what? You're not doing too good with establishing your priorities. Priorities are also things that we've got to widen that out a little bit. We've got to realize hey, God's a priority.
Yeah.
If you don't prioritize God, you're going to miss God's plan.
Yeah.
That's just a fact, right? If you don't prioritize your marriage is not going to be what it could be. The same with family, health, finances, etc. So you do the work, you do the work. I've been doing some of this the last couple of weeks, going through my, my stuff, but you got to take the time. And on the end of this, on the backside of this is really a life of fulfillment and peace and, joy and satisfaction. But those things, we'll get into this more in another podcast, those things never happen on accident. They're always going to we're going to have to be proactive about it.
I want to end with this scripture. Yeah. Psalms 90, verse 12, it says, "So teach us to number our days, that we may gain a heart of wisdom." One translation says, "Teach us to realize the brevity of life."
Wow.
So I think that's a powerful scripture to leave you with today. Ask the Lord, help me to realize that my days here on earth are numbered. You've got so many days, and you need to consider today, what are you going to do with the time that you have left?
Wow, so good. Well, I trust you enjoyed the podcast, and Laura and I always enjoy being with you. Again, Happy New Year, and we'll see you real soon. God bless.